nature. It might be more further back in the instinct area, because of the unnatural state of that situation.
But does fear make you sadistic? Like
No, not really. No.
like I
But it
because
makes you,
they were like locked in spaces, like they couldn't live like left. So I don't know. For me, it just seems like because it wasn't just them doing a little bit of things to like keep authority. Like it was cruel, and prison guards are cruel. Just in general, as cops are cruel.
That's the job.
And violent. I mean, and also who's attracted to those jobs? People who are already like, what is the stat? Like, police officers are 40% more likely to be domestic abusers than the general population. Well, who's like attracted to that work where they're allowed to be sadistic and to hurt other people just by the definition of like the job, right? The job description, and that on top of being allowed to do things like sexually assault and harm prisoners, or degrade or humiliate or physically assault or hurt. So yeah, I mean, I think it's good to like think about all the possibilities of that and like fear something of them. But then again, like they were also still like, it wasn't like they were actual guards. Like they could have just like gone through the experiment and just like been, okay, y'all are locked up. We're just gonna stay on this side of the gate, and y'all can just chill because y'all picked the wrong whatever. Y'all got shuffled wrong or whatever. So I don't see where they would have been legitimate fear to lose that, because it was a study, right? It wasn't
real
no in a
real,
sense. It wasn't
there.
real until they made that trauma and that hurt real.
That's true. That's a good point. I wasn't thinking that. But I do still say that there is some, in my mind anyway, some reason to think that part of the reason, maybe what inspires some of that bully tendency in people is the fear of the fact of they know what they're doing. No. You know, that's why they shoot people all the time. It's like, oh, of course you're going to try and kill me because I am out here trying to control you and, you know, and not let you be a full human. So I'm afraid of you because I know I have a reason to be afraid of you because I know what I'm thinking about you, kind of.
I mean, I definitely think fear, like I think like fear and like complicating like emotions and experiences are very important. And that might be the case in some cases, but there are also a lot of cases where like cops kill innocent people and unarmed people, and well, innocent is a word that it's you know, people don't deserve to die whether they are quote unquote innocent or not.
Right.
But like let's say like unarmed people, because they can get away with it, and there's been like plenty of like recordings of police like laughing after like killing someone because they knew they were going to get away with it.
Yeah, there's no accountability.
And so there's a lot of different things, but I will never feel bad for a cop, because especially not one who murders. So I will save all of my love and all my complicated understanding of humanity for people who are oppressed, not people who are doing the oppressing. And it's not that simple, right? It's not just oppressor versus oppressed, but I will save my, again, feeling complicated emotions for people of like, of whether they're doing harm or whatever, based on how hard it is for them to exist in society, but not cops. Not for me.
Yeah, because the whole like Blue Lives Matter thing, the thing that just struck me as one of the many things that struck me as so weird is that being a cop is a choice. I've decided that I am going to make a career out of controlling other people and enforcing the power of the state. So that is a choice you're making. And when you make that choice, you should be also, someone should tell you somewhere along the line, like, okay, you're going to do this. We're hiring you to be a bully, but you got to understand that there are people who are not going to accept that you're going to try to do that to them, and they will fight back. So that's a risk of the job, not this like, oh, well, we should be respecting you and thanking you for coming into our communities and trying to, you know, make us slaves out of us, you know, somehow. So, yeah, I don't get that. I mean, they're doing a dangerous job that they shouldn't be doing.
But I mean, yeah, there is like some, I think I saw somewhere like the statistics of like the risk of cops dying versus like all these other careers, and it was like cops were like pretty low compared to, I don't know, I don't remember what it was, but I was like, yeah. But it also makes me very happy every time I see, I don't know, happy's complicated, but it makes me, I don't know, it brightens my day when I see like that it's really hard to recruit cops now. Like a lot of people don't want to be cops, and I'm like, yes, exactly, make cops irrelevant.
Good.
Defund them, abolish them. It's all good. Like, no solution is ever going to work that comes outside of the community, and that's something that I've again learned from anarchism. Like, it has to be, because nobody knows what they need best in their community and what's going to help them except people in that community. And so any type of like savior complex, whether it comes from cops, whether it comes from other organizers or nonprofits, it's not going to work, because nobody knows no one knows experiences like the people actually going through them, and nobody knows the solutions like the people going through them. Yes, they can receive help, and yes, they could learn more, and they could like use all these resources, but nobody's really going to fix a problem that they don't experience. Not really.
Yeah.
So, and cops, like, yeah, you're definitely not gonna fix a problem by bringing in guns and people with people who enjoy power trips. And
yeah. Okay, so for the casual listener who is just driving in their car right now and they're like, oh, wait a minute. If you don't have laws, I mean, it's anarchy. But you know, if the other version, not anarchy as a philosophy, but anarchy as in there's no control, everybody's running wild. I mean, it's the law of the jungle then it is the strongest survive, because everybody's out to get everybody else. I mean, what do you say to that person who's like, okay, if you have no cops, then who enforces the laws?
Well, I mean, okay. First would be that it's not in our best interest to be, like, we already are in, what is the saying, a dog-eat-dog world. Like, we are already fighting for our survival through a lot of different means. So I think it's already, for me, it's already chaos. It's really hard to live in this, like, capitalist society. And it's the same thing for my friends, especially my friends being, like, queer and POC. So it's already hard for a lot of people to survive in this world. If like you look at like depression and anxiety rates have like skyrocketed, because we live in a society that's really hard to live in, because not only because of capitalism, but because like all of the harm that's being done in the world, like school shootings and like and just like, I guess in the US, like shootings are a really big one. It really is hard to like go through society seeing that amount of violence every day. So I think that's already happening. I think the only solution to that is to build community, and it doesn't make sense in a community to be after one another, because it just like, who would want to live in a world where you don't know who's going to come after you? So I don't know, for me it's like anarchism and is about building community, and it doesn't make sense for people within that community to be attacking each other. It only makes sense for people within that community to be supporting each other. And if you don't want to be in that sort of community, then you can just leave, and you'll have the freedom to do that if under certain circumstances, like now, like today, in today's society, it's not that easy to just pick up and leave because of all these other things that that come along with it, especially like not having the economic like freedom to do so. But yeah, so yeah, in terms of that, I think we already live in that society. And in terms of laws, you look at, well, I forgot, was it 2015? It was a 2015, like in the Champaign County Jail in 2015, like 97, it was something like 93 to 97% of the people in jail or in the county jail were not in there for having committed a crime. They were awaiting trial because they couldn't afford to bail them, like to be bailed out.
Right.
And that on top of that, the statistics like in the U.S. of the amount of people who are in jail for nonviolent offenses, for drugs, especially like marijuana, and like not even in possession, not even necessarily distribution, is like ridiculously high. There's absolutely, all those people have no reason for being in jail because, like, of course now capitalists are making a profit off of it. And I mean capitalist is anyone who's like a manager, a business owner, like investor, like anything like that. And yet these people are still in jail. Who are these people? Black and brown people for the most part. Again, in the Champaign County Jail, the population is 13% black, right, in Champaign County. And I think it was like, I think between 73 and like, it was like 73 to like 80% of the people in like the Champaign County Jail were black. But the population of Champaign County is 13, which is like, I laugh because it's so ridiculous. Sorry, I just almost swore. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely,
Thank you.
it's absolutely, yeah.
You're
So,
policing yourself.
yeah.
But thank you for doing so, because we'd like to keep this show on the air. And, no, I don't.
Yeah. So to me, I mean, I don't know. To me, the world already is like unlivable and unpredictable. So I kind of would like to imagine a better one where we can have community and the like, and also laws are not as like steady as people think they are. People think that somehow people think that laws are very static and stable. They're not. Laws change all the time, and the way that they are enforced is very arbitrary depending on who's the enforcer. Whether you look at judges, at lawyers, at cops, and then wasn't there like a court case recently that said that cops didn't actually have to know the law, that because they arrested someone who was actually doing something legal, and I think the judge was like, well, they don't have to know the law. They thought what you were doing was illegal, so they don't have to like pay, like they don't have to like apologize or like pay some sort of like damages because they didn't know. And so like, again, like, okay, they can just like, cops can just invent laws as they go. There's also like the amount of times that cops have been seen like planting evidence or just straight up lying. Like, how is how is resisting arrest a crime when there is no crime to be arrested for? Like, all those things, like, it's just not and like the way things are enforced, like their laws are just applied as whoever wants them to apply it. So there already is no order, as much as people like to pretend there is.
Right.
There's only order of like that oppressors and like people in power want to enforce, and that's not the kind of life I want to live. Hence, I'm an anarchist.
Yes. Hence,
I'm an anarchist. Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe that should be your shirt. Hence, I'm an anarchist.
Yeah.
Ask me what hence is all about. I'll tell you later. Well, we're well past our halfway point here. Was there anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about, or are you happy to just freeform this?
Well, the detention center trying to be built in Dwight would be a good topic of conversation.
Well, we have a few minutes left here. Okay. We can talk about that. Last I heard, was it the House, Illinois House, voted on something? On
HB 2040, which is like moratorium on detention center, something like that. The way it's being sold is that it's going to ban the construction, like the private contracts between small towns and private for-profit companies. That's the way it's being sold. It's a ban on for-profit companies coming into Illinois and having contracts with towns. It passed the House. It's called HB 2040. I do encourage people to like call the reps and like try to get it passed. However, at most what HB 2040 would probably likely do, as it's done in other states, because they've actually tried to pass this law before. I think it was in Indiana. It was somewhere in like Midwest states. They only changed 3 words, and it didn't pass. I don't think it passed there. But even if it had, really what it does is kind of de-incentivize small towns like Dwight from making those contracts. But the issue is that the small towns that they're targeting, especially like they're targeting small towns. So Dwight is a 4,000 person population town.
Right.
The reason why is because the incentives are, if all the towns have to do is annex a certain part of land into sort of their jurisdiction, I guess. And then what actually is going to happen is that private company is going to do all the work, the construction, like the investment, all the things. They're going to bring all of that there. They're going to build it. They're going to have the contract with the federal agency, which is ICE. And it's going to run the way. What the town would benefit from would be an increase in population. So all the 1,200 people that they're planning to house in Dwight would count as residents and would help for certain like political and economic benefits. So that's really why Dwight would benefit from that. And then on top of that, right? So like the contract is between the private company.
Yes.
And which is that I think ICA right now, the private company, and the federal government. I'm not a lawyer, but I not 100% sure how the state of Illinois could stop something that a federal agency wants to do, besides take away some of those incentives. Like they can say, oh, well, Dwight won't necessarily get these specific incentives, but it doesn't mean that they won't get others, especially like the mayor of Dwight is very much has practically been the spokesperson for this detention center. So there really isn't there is no guarantee, especially when you look at the law. It's so kind of simplistic. It doesn't really say this is exactly how we're going to stop it. So a lot of like articles are selling it as a ban on for profit, but there's like so many different types of detention centers. There's like directly, so I think it would not allow for the town itself to, like, let's say build their own detention center possibly, or like work with for profits to build a detention center. But that doesn't say anything about, well, the Dwight is just going to allow the land to be used by the ICA and ICE, right? So like there's no guarantee that's going to happen. So as much as I encourage people to like get that, I think it would help kind of slow it down, but I don't think and it would add to the list of why Dwight shouldn't do it, on top of like people not wanting it there and people in Central not wanting it there, but it wouldn't necessarily defeat that. So there is a lot of other there's a lot of other organizing that needs to be done. I've been in contact with people from Chicago, a little bit from Peoria. There's a very few people in Dwight who feel comfortable speaking out, because it is such a small town.
Yeah.
With people here, and there's been a few other people who have been sort of trying to sort of find any sort of way from like grassroots organizers to defeat that, because there's been a lot constantly, like it seems like every year there's a new detention center trying to be built in the Midwest. And so if it's not Dwight, it's going to be somewhere else, but we don't necessarily want it to be Dwight either.
Right.
So so the law is the bill, which there's no guarantee it's going to pass the Senate, would be good if it did pass, but it's not going to be the end of that struggle. And so I definitely encourage people to kind of connect with like pages like No Ice, Dwight, No Ban, No Wall Peoria, Little Village Solidarity Network is doing some work with that. UIUCIU that here is doing some work with that. We are, and so yeah, there needs to be a lot more done, a lot more going to Dwight, a lot more kind of coming up with all these different arguments, not coming up, but like kind of emphasizing that a detention center is a very limited way to look at like the possibilities for a town like Dwight. I know a lot of people like to claim that, it's going to be an economic boost, but that's not necessarily true, in the sense that it might be an economic boost for like the businesses that are like there, for some of them there, but that's not necessarily going to translate to like residents or even jobs, because a lot of times they'll build these centers and then hire, like kind of outsource work and have people who don't live in Dwight or who don't live in those towns work in those. So they're promising so many jobs, but that's not necessarily going to be the case. And they used to have a women's prison there, but it got decommissioned, and so a lot of people like left Dwight because they no longer had a job. And so there's no guarantee that won't happen. It's actually pretty guaranteed that that's what's going to happen with a detention center as well, because you have a president who's very much into building a bunch of detention centers right now, and like an administration that's supportive of that, and ICE. But what happens in 2 years when he's not the president anymore, or 4 years? Like, it's going to be the same exact thing, where people are left in a lurch and they don't know what to do. There's like this. I think I heard the women's prison, they kind of like don't have money to tear it down or like change it to be anything else. Like, there is just a building, an abandoned building there. That's pretty much what's guaranteed what's going to happen with a detention center as well. Yeah. On top of no guarantee of jobs. Like, they're not gonna promise, all of the people we hire are going to be from Dwight. No company's going to do that, because what they care about is maximizing profits. Sure. And if they don't care about locking people up for money, why would they care about the people living in Dwight?
No, they don't.
Then they don't. Yeah, they don't.
They'll bring in a bunch of immigrants to build the place. I can guarantee you that that's who's going to come and build it. And the companies that employ them will be from Chicago and St. Louis and whatever. So maybe a few locals, if you happen to be a drywaller or an electrician or something like that. But maybe not, So a handful, maybe half a dozen, will temporarily work on building it. And then afterwards they'll hire guards, and maybe, again, that same handful of people could become guards, but they probably won't pay very much, and they'll probably bring in professionals, and
Yep.
So really, you're right. I mean, it's really not going to do much for Dwight except maybe tax stuff, and they might get infrastructure, drainage and water, and things like that might come in there that would be helpful. But yeah, I don't. The gas station, that what is? I forget what the small town gas stations are. Is it Huck's or something like that? Anyway, some small town, they'll do well because people will be coming and going
Yeah.
and stopping for gas and maybe buy some frozen pizza while they're there. And that's pretty much it.
Yep.
So what they're getting from it, they're buying an illusion. And
That's going to cost a lot of people.
yeah. That's pretty upsetting. So what can I do?
What can you do?
Show
up.
Obviously, show up.
Yeah, so
Support.
What we're planning to do right now, the other thing that's going to do for Dwight is put it on the map where a lot of people don't know where Dwight is, and now a lot of people do know where Dwight
Exactly.
is, but not for the best reasons. So, so right now, the different places that I mentioned, like organizers in Chicago, and here and kind of around Illinois specifically, I think a couple in Indiana are trying to have sort of like a week a week of awareness because I think from May 5th to the 12th. So there's going to be a lot of stuff on social media. We're probably going to have events. There are going to be events in Chicago. There's definitely going to be events here. Again, possibly going to Dwight, but so there's going to be a lot of stuff going on just because of the law. A lot of people are kind of putting it in the back of their minds, and they're saying, well, the Democrats are going to save us, which has never historically ever happened. So a lot of people are saying, well, they're going to take care of it. It's going to get banned. But that's not necessarily true. So I definitely would encourage everyone to, I think specifically the easiest way is reaching out online, on social media. So Facebook, UIUCIU, that's on Facebook. Little Village Solidarity Network is on Facebook. If not, UIUCIU that at Gmail, if you want to reach out and ask, okay, what we can do. We had a teach-in this, we hosted a teach-in this Sunday where we talked. It was like a 3.5 or 2.5 hour. We talked about all of the intrinsic, all the history of the detention centers in central Illinois, how campaigns that have defeated them, what we're trying to do here, what is the situation in Dwight, how can we get people in Dwight to speak out against the center, because I'm sure there are people who disagree, but it's kind of difficult to speak out when you kind of probably know all your neighbors, right?
Yeah.
So definitely reaching out. I think we're still figuring out next steps, but just sharing information, asking people to call your reps. Emailing, you can still email the village board and let them know, hey, we're not forgetting about this, because it might be worth the I don't know, it might be that it might be necessary to say, hey, the trouble that is getting brought to Dwight because of the detention center isn't worth it. The economic benefits that are promised, which are not even going to be met.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We're doing a lot of different things, but definitely I think these kinds of conversations of actually doing stuff happen in person and meetings. So following up to date. Like I said, Little Village Solidarity Network is doing a lot of good work of putting out arguments, of putting up updates, because it's been really, really hard to find a lot of information coming out. But in UICIU, that here in Champaign-Urbana, we're trying to do our best to send those updates out, and we're going to have a lot more events coming up soon.
Good.
For more community members to be involved, because there's so many organizers and people who care in Champaign-Urbana. I've seen it. I've seen 400 people come out during the Muslim ban. We had a rally, even on campus, there was 400 people, and we planned it in 24 hours. And so I know there's people around here who care, not just on campus town, but all over Champaign-Urbana and Champaign County and all over the place. And so I think if we can get all that caring out and show people that we're serious, that we don't want people who are just trying to get a better life be locked up, and we're not going to allow it, I think we could definitely stop it. We just need to connect.
Yeah, I hope so. It's always the problem when you're trying to convince someone over there to do something that you
Yeah.
think should be done here. It's like, oh, you should do this, and they're like, I don't care. It's like you were saying earlier about if people deciding for themselves what's right for them, they may be thinking, yeah, let's lock them up. That's right for us, but it's not right for us because we're our loved ones, our friends, family, and loved ones are the ones being locked up. So it's a very complicated issue. And I struggle weekly to talk about it because there's so much to it. There's so many different things going on and so many different ways that people are looking at things. And so I appreciate, as we get near the end of the show here, that you were willing to do a free-form conversation. I apologize again for starting
All
out
good.
with anarchism, because that probably was a sort of out of left field question. But I mean, I'm curious about it. You have a shirt that says anarchism on it, so I'm just like, hey, tell me what it means. But it's really interesting, and I hope that you can come on again sometime and talk about stuff. I will later. I'll send you an email and ask for the names of some of these groups so I can put them on the YouTube version of the show, so that rather than just expecting somebody to hear it and remember it, they can read it on there, because I think that'll be useful links for them. And I don't know. So what's in the last 3 minutes here? What's next for you? What's your next big thing? Are you just still working on Dwight, or you got some other project that you're doing right now that you want to promote?
Unrelated, but my next thing that I'm doing is I am with Black Rose. We're trying to send me to Chile for a little bit under 2 months to do an exchange with other comrades in Chile and Latin America to kind of exchange strategies and
cool.
analysis of what's going on in the U.S. and Chile and Argentina, because we can't really decide the best way to move forward if we don't know where we currently are. And so kind of drawing comparisons is a good way to do that. So should be launching a fundraising campaign in the next few days.
Cool.
If y'all are interested in anarchism, you should check out Black Rose Rosa Negra, which is the org. And we have a podcast. We have a lot of literature on our website. And yeah, so that's my next thing. Hopefully, if I can fundraise enough to get me over there to go to the international conference, which was with the conference of another anarchist org in Chile, and so meet a lot of people in Latin America and kind of their experiences. So the biggest thing of like I said, for me with anarchism is the reason why I think anarchism is so great is because of all the anarchists that I've met, and so in Black Rose there's anarchists and involved in every single movement you can think of. In LA I mentioned the sex workers. There's also the tenant unionizing. There's pretty much, I think there's at least one person in all the teacher strikes that happened. In North Carolina and Virginia, there's people in Black Rose or connections there. So it's how people are involved in every struggle, because we see the value of every struggle and the importance of resisting where we are and how we can based on what our struggles are. So if you have tenant issues, then that's what you're going to fight. So yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Well, we're out of time. You've been listening to CU Immigration here on WRFU LP Urbana 104.5 FM, as well as UPTV and or YouTube. I have no time to say anything else, so I'll see you later. Bye-bye.